They told her she no longer belonged in the building that bore her name. They stripped her keycard, erased her access, and watched her walk away like she was nothing to be. By the end of that week, Ariana Knox was not just back inside. She was sitting at the head of the boardroom table, while the very people who tried to erase her were being escorted out one by one at the security cameras that once caught her humiliation. Now, they were recording her return. No one saw it coming. Not the COO she once mentored, not the board she trusted, and certainly not the press waiting to confirm her downfall. What they all forgot was simple. Ariana did not beg for power. She built it. And when you build something brick by brick, you know exactly which ones to pull when it starts to lean. The sun had barely cleared the skyline over Atlanta when Ariana Knox pulled into the underground garage of the Eastbrook Tower, the sleek, glass and steel headquarters of Haven Equity Bank. She always arrived early. Her black Range Rover slid into the space marked CEO, reserved, its engine humming low before going still. She had been up since 4:30 a.m., finishing her notes for the quarterly board meeting and skimming through a community lending proposal that had kept her awake most of the night. Her coffee sat cold in the cup holder. She had forgotten to sip it. Again, Ariana stepped out, her heels clicking against polished concrete. Her suit was tailored graphite gray, no jewelry but a silver brooch at the collar, her father's old Omega symbol. Her curls were swept up in a soft bun, controlled, effortless. Just like her. She nodded to the janitor, who was buffing the marble near the elevators. "Morning, Ms. Knox," he said with a smile. "Morning, Reggie. How's that elevator glitch on level 2? Still temperamental, like some folks upstairs." She smiled faintly, then turned toward the executive access elevator, the one that opened directly to the 28th floor, her floor. She reached into her leather bag, pulled out her black access card, and tapped it against the glass panel. Beep. Red. Light. She blinked, scanned it again. Slower. Beep. Red. She adjusted her stance, glanced at the scanner. Tried once more. Same result. She frowned, checking the card's chip for damage, then pressed the intercom button beside the panel. "Grace?" she said, expecting the familiar voice of her assistant to buzz her in. The reply was not Grace. It was someone unfamiliar. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to remain in the lobby." Ariana froze. "I'm sorry, who is this?" "This is Officer Jalen Briggs. Private security. Where is Marcus Bell?" "He's been reassigned." "To what?" "Head of perimeter coverage." She narrowed her eyes. "Let me in the building. I'm Ariana Knox. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Haven Equity." Silence. Then, "I'm sorry, Ms. Knox. I've been instructed not to grant access." She didn't move. Not yet. Behind her, footsteps echoed. Two uniformed guards approached from the north stairwell, flanking her with carefully neutral expressions. One held a clipboard. "I'm going to need your badge," he said quietly. Ariana turned slowly. "I'm sorry?" "Your badge, phone, and any Haven-issued materials." "By whose authority?" "I'm not at liberty to say." Ariana stared at him. Her breath caught, just once. Behind the glass walls of the lobby, a few employees had started to gather. Someone whispered. Someone lifted a phone. She unclipped her ID badge and held it between two fingers like it burned. "You do realize," she said, voice like ice. "This company exists because I built it." From nothing. The guard didn't respond. He only held out his hand. Her badge dropped into it. Then her company phone. Behind the glass, faces pressed to windows. Some she recognized. Some looked away. Her voice did not shake. "Make sure whoever's watching this footage knows one thing," she said. "This story is not over." And then, with her head held high, Ariana Knox walked out of the lobby, down the marble steps, and into the mid-morning heat. She did not rush. She did not glance back. If they were going to treat her like a trespasser in her own house, then she would give them a performance worth remembering. The city buzzed around her, but Ariana Knox stood still on the edge of Market Street, her fingers wrapped tightly around her personal phone. She had tried Grace first, straight to voicemail. Then her legal counsel. On the third ring, a clipped voice answered. "Marcellus Dean speaking." "It's me," Ariana said quietly. "They locked me out." A pause. "Come again." "I showed up for a board meeting, and they had two security guards waiting with a clipboard like I was some intern who forgot to return her badge." He did not ask if she was serious. He knew her voice too well. "Where are you right now?" sidewalk, in front of my building. And everyone in that lobby probably thinks I was escorted out for embezzlement. There was a longer pause this time. Do not talk to anyone. Do not post anything. I will call you back in 20 minutes. Ariana lowered the phone from her ear. She felt the burn of 100 invisible eyes. Across the street, in the window of a boutique cafe, she spotted Noah Kellerman, senior strategist at Haven and someone she once mentored, pretending not to see her. One of the interns leaned in, whispered something, and Noah shifted uncomfortably. In his chair, Ariana took that in like a photograph, every detail, every glance. She turned away, walked slowly toward the bench beneath the magnolia tree across the plaza. She sat down and did something she had not done in years. She closed her eyes and breathed through rage. This company had not been a gift. It had been carved out of rejection. 15 years ago, she was sitting on a folding chair inside a rundown storefront in South Atlanta that used to be a laundromat. There was no air conditioning. A box fan clattered in the corner like it was on its last breath. She had a second-hand desk, a laptop from a pawn shop, and a dream no one took seriously. The banks would not fund her. The city loan office told her she smiled too little, then too much. Her college professors warned her that her ambition would alienate collaborators. So she stopped asking. She cashed out her retirement fund, sold the house her grandmother left her, and moved into a one-bedroom walk-up with bad pipes and cheaper rent. For 2 years, she pitched families, pastors, and small business owners, anyone who felt unseen by the big banks. They trusted her before any institution did. And when Haven Equity finally opened its first official branch, she had invited every person who had told her no. Some came. Some did not. Above the entrance was a bronze plaque that read, "Do not wait to be invited. Build the house." AK people had laughed at it. They were not laughing now. Ariana's phone buzzed. A text from Marcellus. "You still hold majority." They never filed the trust transfer. Their removal is not legal. She stared at the message. Once. Twice. Then the quietest smile touched her lips. Not triumphant. Not cruel. Just calm. The kind of smile that only shows up when the storm passes and you remember you already knew how to swim. She stood slowly, reached into her tote bag and pulled out a leather-bound folder. One she always kept, though she had not opened it in years. Inside were the company's original articles of incorporation. Hand-labeled. Hand-signed. Folded neatly behind the front page was the holding agreement, the same one drawn up before Haven ever had its first customer. There it was, signature line 1, Ariana Knox. Signed and dated. Signature line 2, blank. The trust had never been transferred. She had never signed away control. They assumed she had, probably because 2 years ago, when her younger brother passed suddenly, she had been too deep in grief to question the stack of papers they shoved in front of her. Ariana traced her finger across the empty line. She knew what this meant. Votes, meetings, secret recordings. None of it held weight. Not legally. Not morally. She did not need permission to take her seat back. She just needed to remind them who built the table in the first place. She reached for her phone again. "Marcellus," she said when he answered. "What is our next step?" "You. Go back in," he said. "Not alone. I will be with you. And I will bring the documents. And if they resist, then we make it public. Loudly. Your name is still on the foundation, Ariana." Time to remind them what that means. She exhaled slowly and closed the folder. IT was never about power for her. IT was about purpose. But if they thought she was finished, they were about to relearn the first rule of Haven Equity. Do not bet against the woman who built the floor you are standing on. The rain had come in overnight, soaking the pavement and leaving behind a dull gray sky that hung low over Atlanta like unfinished business. By 8 a.m. The air was thick with a quiet tension that no one could name, but everyone could feel. Inside the marble lobby of Haven Equity's headquarters, the morning security officer, new, young, and clearly nervous, adjusted the collar of his uniform. When the elevator doors opened, Ariana Knox stepped out first. No heels today. No jewelry. Just a charcoal gray pantsuit, flats, and her natural curls tied back into a low twist. Her walk was steady, her eyes forward. Behind her walked Marcellus, Dean, her lawyer, Federal Regulatory Counsel, briefcase in one hand, his expression unreadable. And behind them, a young assistant wheeled in a slim cart stacked with legal binders, contracts, and a single red folder marked Ownership Declaration, Haven Equity Holdings. The guard blinked, hand hovering near his walkie-talkie. "Ma'am." Ariana held up one hand. Not aggressive, just clear. "You may want to call upstairs," she said. "Let them know the owner has arrived." He hesitated, then reached for the phone. Up on the 28th floor, Eli Mercer, acting chief operating officer, stood at the window, watching raindrops streak down the glass. His dress shirt was already damp with sweat beneath the arms. Behind him, Leona Graves, interim CFO, paced in small, jerky circles near the conference table. On the other side of the room, Miles Jensen, head of risk and a former protege of Ariana's, sat stiffly with his phone face down. That a young assistant rushed in, eyes wide. "She's downstairs." "Alone?" Leona asked. "No, with legal counsel. Documents in hand." Eli pressed his fingers to his temple. "What documents?" "They were labeled trust and ownership." The assistant swallowed. "The guy with her is Marcellus Dean." The room fell into a silence that buzzed louder than words. "She is bluffing," Miles said quickly. "She does not have control anymore. We voted." Eli's voice was flat. "You saw the trust signature?" "No," Miles admitted. "But I assumed." Leona turned sharply. "You assumed?" Back in the lobby, Marcellus turned to Ariana. "They are stalling. If they delay access for another 15 minutes, I will call for a temporary injunction with the state business court." Ariana nodded once. "Do it." As Marcellus stepped aside to place the call, Ariana pulled out her personal tablet. She typed with clean precision. "Public statement at 10:30 a.m. outside Haven Equity HQ regarding illegal removal and confirmed ownership." She handed the device to her assistant. "Push across all platforms. Use the company's official hashtag. Add the founding quote." "Which one?" She looked directly at her. "Build the house." A minute later, Haven Equity started trending. Inside the boardroom, the panic was no longer subtle. Leona grabbed her blazer. "She is making this public. Right now." "We can stall," Eli said. "No," Leona cut in. "We cannot." Miles flipped his phone over. "She never signed it," he said quietly. "The second line on the trust. I checked it. Just now." No one spoke. Then the elevator dinged, and Ariana Knox walked back into her building. This time, no one asked for a badge. No one held out a clipboard. She moved through the lobby like it was still hers, because it was that as she stepped off the executive elevator, the hallway fell quiet. Conversations ended mid-sentence. Paperwork was forgotten. Half-drunk coffee cups were left abandoned on desks. She did not look at the faces. She looked at the hallway, her hallway, and walked toward the boardroom with calm steps and shoulders squared. The door. Marcellus opened the red folder and held it under one arm. Ariana reached for the handle, paused, and said just loud enough to carry, "This is not a return. It is a correction." Then she stepped into the room she built, no longer seeking permission, but claiming position. At by 10:25 a.m., a crowd had gathered outside Haven Equity's sleek glass headquarters. Local reporters stood clustered under umbrellas. Staffers stepped out to take a call, but stayed to witness. Police officers lined the sidewalk, not for danger, but to keep order. The buzz in the air was unmistakable, and at the top of the stone steps, standing like she never left, was Ariana Knox, no podium. No script, just her, a simple microphone, and a message that needed no rehearsal. "I want to begin with clarity," Ariana said, her voice firm but composed. "I did not resign. I was not asked to step down. I was removed, without warning, without process, and without cause." The cameras clicked. Phones recorded from every angle. "Yesterday, I came to this building for a scheduled board meeting. Instead, I was met with locked doors and unfamiliar faces telling me I no longer belonged in the company I built from scratch." She paused. Let the silence settle around her. Haven Equity was started with one desk in a forgotten strip mall and a belief that families like mine, black, underbanked, overlooked, deserved to be heard. This company was not born out of luck. It was born out of rejection. Murmurs moved through the crowd. "What those board members forgot," she continued, "is that I never gave them power. I gave them opportunity." That line landed. Reporters lowered their pens for a beat, eyes fixed on her. "I worked with communities no one would lend to. I sat across from single mothers, immigrant small business owners, and veterans, people who were told no again and again by bigger banks. I told them yes. That is why this company succeeded. Not because of projections or polished suits, but because I remembered who we were building for. Inside the boardroom, the atmosphere was cracking. Eli Mercer watched the live stream on his phone, his face pale. "She is pulling this off," he whispered. Leona Graves gripped the edge of the table. "She is controlling the narrative." Miles Jensen stood with arms folded, stone-faced but silent. Back outside, Ariana took one step forward. "Effective immediately," she said, her eyes scanning the cameras. "I am resuming my role as Chief Executive Officer of Haven Equity." There was no dramatic pause, only applause that grew like a wave. Online, the ripple effect began. Clips from her speech hit social media like sparks. She came back stronger. They locked her out. She unlocked a movement. Ariana Knox is trending. Her assistant handed out printed statements to the press, cease and desist orders, ownership documents, legal notices. Ariana turned her gaze toward the upper floors of the building behind her. "To my employees," she said, "business will continue. To our clients, your trust remains protected. And to those who tried to bury me," she let the moment breathe, "I hope you remember who hired you, because I have not decided yet whether you are keeping your jobs." She stepped back, and, for a moment, the entire city seemed to hold its breath. In the boardroom, no one spoke. Then a knock. Marcella stepped inside, folder in hand. "This is the signed and registered agreement," he said calmly. "As of this morning, executive authority has legally returned to Ms. Knox. This meeting is no longer valid unless she calls it." Ariana followed behind him, calm and deliberate. Eli stood. "Ariana," she raised a hand. "You do not speak for the board. Not anymore." She placed the red folder on the table. "Your vote was invalid. Your actions were unauthorized. And your attempt to rewrite my story ends now." No one argued. No one moved. Ariana turned to leave the room. She did not slam the door. She did not raise her voice, because she did not need to. The building had already heard her, and this time, it remembered by Monday morning. The energy inside Haven Equity had changed. The whispers had quieted. The halls were no longer buzzing with speculation. They were holding their breath. Ariana Knox arrived early. No press, no entourage, just her leather briefcase and a small legal pad filled with names, facts, and a plan at exactly 9 a.m. She entered the executive boardroom. 7 remaining board members sat around the polished glass table, folders in front of them, eyes lowered or darting away. Marcella Steen stood at her side, calm as ever, a fresh stack of legal documents in his hand. Ariana did not sit. "I have reviewed the minutes from the last closed-door sessions," she began, her voice even. "3 of you authorized actions without full board-wide votes. 2 of you failed to disclose conflicts of interest. And 1 of you," she looked directly at Miles Jensen, "attempted to access internal payroll systems using my credentials the day before I was locked out." Miles shifted in his seat. The color drained from his face. "You all assumed I would panic, that I would respond with emotion. You wanted the narrative of a woman who lost control, because it is easier to call a woman unstable than to admit she outsmarted you." No one dared to meet her eyes. "So here is what will happen." She flipped open the notepad. "Leona Graves, Chief Financial Officer. You are suspended indefinitely, pending a full internal audit." Leona opened her mouth, stunned. "You do not have the authority." Marcella stepped forward and placed a folder on the table. As of Friday, Ms. Knox resumed full executive powers under Haven Equity's founding agreement. The board's authority is now advisory, not executive. Ariana continued. "Miles Jensen, effective immediately, your access to all company systems is revoked. You will be escorted by HR and legal for further investigation. You used my name to breach internal systems. That is not just a violation, it is a decision." Miles pushed back from the table too quickly, knocking his chair. He stormed out without a word. The door slammed behind him. Ariana turned next to Eli Mercer. "I should fire you." Eli did not flinch. "Then do it." "But I will not," she said. "Not yet." He blinked. "I want you to sit in these meetings. I want you to look me in the eye. I want you to watch me undo every move you made. That will hurt more." The room went still. Eli lowered his gaze. Ariana closed her notepad with care. I started this company so people who looked like me, who came from neighborhoods like mine, would not have to beg for credibility. I gave each of you an opportunity to protect that vision. You did not. You protected yourselves. She looked around the room slowly. I do not run this place to make you comfortable. I run it to make sure the people outside these walls get a fair chance. If that makes you uncomfortable, good. That means you are finally paying attention. Then she left the boardroom, quietly, without slamming doors, without fury, just a clear sense of control. That afternoon, Ariana sat in a quiet conference room on the HR floor. One by one, she met with every department head. No accusations. No yelling. Just one question. Why did you stay silent? Some answered honestly. I was afraid. I thought you were stepping down. I did not know what was happening. A few apologized. Some avoided her eyes. But Ariana did not lash out. She listened. She took notes. She nodded. She had learned something. Most people do not fight for what is right until they see someone else do it first. 3 days later, Ariana stood in front of every Haven Equity employee, somewhere in the room. Others tuned in remotely. She held no notes, no podium, just a whiteboard behind her with 2 words written in bold black ink. Who's accountable? I am not here to save face, she said. I am here to rebuild the foundation. She let her eyes move across the room. That means every single person here needs to own their silence, their shortcuts, their fear. She paused. If you ever see something wrong, say something, even if it is about me. Another pause, especially if it is about me. The room went quiet, but it was not the silence of confusion. It was the silence of awakening. Because leadership is not about being loud. It is about being the first one to speak when everything goes quiet. And Ariana had just changed the tone of the entire institution. The sun had dipped low over the city. Long shadows stretched across the skyline, and the golden light spilled gently through the blinds of her corner office. Ariana Knox sat alone at no meetings. No cameras, no chaos, just her, a steaming cup of coffee, and the soft crackle of a jazz record spinning behind her, an old one from her father's collection. She stared at her notebook, pages filled with scribbled arrows, crossed out names, and bold circles. Not just a recovery plan, a reinvention. The knock on the door was soft. Grace stepped in, hesitant but smiling. The press is ready whenever you are. Ariana nodded, then paused. Grace lingered a second longer before asking quietly, do you think they will try again? Ariana looked up, steady. They always do. Then, after a breath, she added, but next time, we will not be quiet. Grace gave a small nod. The door closed gently behind her. Outside the building, a small crowd of reporters had gathered again. But this time, there were no rumors, no scandal, no spectacle. They were there because Ariana had asked them to be. She stepped up to the podium. No notes, no teleprompter, just presence. I know what some of you came looking for, she began. Revenge, retaliation, a scandal turned inside out. Her voice was calm, but powerful. That is not what you are going to get. What you will get is something better, transparency, structure, and a future built with intention. She leaned slightly forward. I am not the victim. I am the blueprint. A few camera shutters snapped. A few heads turned. I spent most of my career making myself small enough to sit at someone else's table, until I realized that table was never built for me. She looked out over the crowd. So I built my own. Then she added, softly but with steel in her tone, if they are uncomfortable around strength, let them squirm. She turned and walked back into Haven Equity, not toward conflict, but toward clarity. Never trade your voice for a seat at the table. Build your own, and make it loud.